Welcome to Wachtung Booksellers, Talk with the Authors. I'm Margot Sagel. I'm the owner of Wachtung Booksellers, and I am so pleased to welcome these three amazing authors who have written books in the World by Us series. We've got See Me, Hear Me, Know Me by Denise Lewis Patrick. And then we have Lead with Your Heart by Angela Cervantes, and The River and Me by Sharon Dennis Wyatt. So I would like to introduce each of the authors, and then we will talk to them about their books. So first, I would like to introduce Sharon Dennis Wyatt. So she's the author of Yvette, The River and Me. Sharon has over 50 titles for young readers: picture books, historical fiction, and contemporary middle grade fiction. Sharon is also the Associate Professor of Children's Literature at Hollins University, and she's born and raised in Washington, D.C. She's been living in Montclair, New Jersey since 1994, and one of her favorite places to hang out is Wachtung Booksellers. Thank you, Sharon. Yeah. And then Denise Lewis Patrick is the author of McKenna, See Me, Hear Me, Know Me, and she's written fiction and nonfiction for every age group, including board books, picture books, biographies, middle grade historical fiction, and young adult fiction. She's volunteered as a mentor to a young writers group and taught the first-year writing program at Montclair State University as an adjunct professor. She's originally from Louisiana, and now she lives in Montclair. And we welcome Angela Cervantes. She's the author of Maritza, Lead with Your Heart. And Angela's inspiration to start writing during her childhood was because when she loved to read, but she could never find a book that reflected her Mexican-American heritage and community. Today, Angela lives in Kansas with her family, and when she's not writing, she obsesses over her favorite soccer teams and runs every chance she gets. So we are so pleased to have the three of you here with these three great stories. I just wanted to introduce the girls, three girls, Maritza, McKenna, and Yvette, and they're friends in Washington, D.C., and this is I love it, it's their mission. The girls say, we want to live in a world where everyone is treated fairly and with respect. And we believe that if we work together, we can build a future that works for all of us. Best of all, we don't need to wait until we grow up to make a difference. We can do it right now. And together we have the power to create the kind of world we want, a world by us. I thought it was such a great mission to start these beautiful stories. So I was wondering if you could each introduce your girls and their story.
So Lead with Your Heart is a story about Maritza Ochoa. She is one of the new dolls and new books as part of the World by Us series by American Girls. It's a series that was definitely with the goal to celebrate diversity, contemporary new characters, and sort of like young women's active role in social change in our world and in our country. And Maritza is definitely one of those chicas. She loves soccer. She loves to run. She is a sporty girl. But in this book, she also finds inspiration and motivation to be an advocate for immigrant rights. And that is pretty much her story. And through this journey of sort of fighting for immigrant rights, she meets the wonderful characters of McKenna and Evie, and together these girls show that one of the things that they say in this book is like, tu lucha is mi lucha, which basically is your fight, your struggle is my struggle. We're all in it together to make the world a better place and make a positive difference. And that's why it was such a joy to write.
Well, I think McKenna is very confident, I think, and she discovers in the course of her story an awareness for how children are not always treated as equals in having feelings and reactions to what's going on around them. She also, as an African American living in DC, is very aware of the social justice movement that's going on around her and in the country. And so through a series of experiences in this time frame, she comes to the kind of epiphany, the awareness that she can do something to make her voice heard as a young person, as an African American person, as someone who wants everyone to be treated fairly in the world. And so she discovers how to do that using her gifts and talents. So my mission in creating her character and developing her character was to kind of show other kids, other readers, how they can use who they are to be seen and heard and really known for their individualism.
Yvette, Evie Peters, is a girl from a biracial family. Her mother is African American, her father is white. She lives in my home city, Washington, D.C., where I was born and raised. And she doesn't, she's a nature lover when the story begins. She's a wonderful, sweet girl, very attached to her family. Yvette's book starts out somehow talking about the sign that she and her whole family, her brother, her little brother, and her parents made for their front yard thinking essential workers. During the period of the pandemic, which is not, I don't really focus on that, and none of us really focus on it, but we acknowledge that this is the context and the reality of today. And we were hoping that things would be much better, and they are when the books come out. But during this period, she spends a lot of time with her maternal grandmother, who's her mother's mother and an African American who lives in the Anacostia neighborhood of Washington, D.C., where I spent almost all of my own childhood, and where my grandparents lived, and where I lived for almost my entire childhood. So she's quite attached to this person, and through her attachment to this grandmother, she learns about the environmental issues that are going on with water in Washington, D.C., namely the Anacostia River, which is a place that I'm very familiar with because that was my one most consistent exposure to a natural environment when I was growing up. Anybody who lives in a city has a river just knows the river. You know, they look at it, even if all they do is stare at it. So in the book, what I did is I had the wonderful opportunity of creating the theme of unity within a family, because there is her two grandmothers, the white grandmother and the black grandmother, really don't speak to each other. And through her work in environmentalism on a river that her grandmother remembers swimming in when she's younger, she brings the two parts of her family together. So it was quite a challenge to have a racial identity theme and an environmental theme, to weave both those themes into the story. But somehow the river, the Anacostia River, was a perfect metaphor and location for that, because the river does not judge people.
I love the fact that the community center was a common point. How did the three of you work together? Did you have meetings?
Well, it was all virtual. It was all virtual,
Mm-hmm.
of course. And then emails with each other at a certain point when we started our writing. But Sharon and I had met each other, but we had not met Angela. And so we met each other virtually and worked for over a year.
Wow.
Without actually seeing each other, but getting that energy from each other in terms of how we were creating our characters and the directions they were going. I think one of the great things about the project was how each of us had characters that discovered allies, to use that word, but for them, friends that they had not met before, but the discovery was that they all shared this concern for justice and they found strength in these new friendships. And I think that that was an important thing for us to kind of present for young readers, that you have friends, but you can always find new friends with whom you have something in common. And for them, it was justice in different ways.
Yeah, it was. I think that was a very exciting thing to create this the connections and how they forged these connections. And
Yes.
it wasn't all that easy because we each had our individual stories. Each of the girls had their own family story. And then there was this, how do they get together in Anacostia? It was very interesting, but
the logistics.
yeah, and occasionally we'd say, well, we'd send one another snippets of scenes. I remember Denise sent me one saying, well, here, there's a tapestry, a knitting exhibit at the community. It was at a museum at first, but then it later became at the community center. And she had a little scene where Yvette is looking at the same thing, the same exhibit, and they discover one another because, well, not to go into too much, but McKenna is kind of a famous person in the series because she has a fashion blog, and so
she has a vlog,
already,
a video blog.
Had already seen her, and so she sees her at this exhibit in the community center and goes, "Oh my gosh, it's McKenna! Oh my goodness!"
But the community center kind of became the connector, became the not the glue between them, but it became the connecting point for them physically, and sort of the community center itself played a role in helping them to forge friendships and have conversations kind of naturally and discover the things that they had in common. And so that was kind of I think the community center is an important character in all stories from that point of view. Yeah.
And what's nice about the community center being sort of like this focus point, this meeting point for the three characters, is also that you can come from all different types of interests and backgrounds. McKenna, it's all about fashion, and, for Evie, it's all about, her fashion is different. She's kind of more retro and vintage, classic, and here's Maritza, who's all sporty. Just give me a good pair of sneakers and I'm ready to go. And yet, no matter how different they are with their own fashion styles, they come together. They find something that unites them there. And the community center becomes a safe place for the three girls to kind of like dream and think how they want to take on the world.
They have discussions too about racism, immigration, things they've observed. They listen to one another. They give advice to one another. And I think that's a very plausible thing. And it's also necessary for young people, I think, to have conversations about the things that they observe and that trouble them, that they want to fix. They share with their parents and their families. Each of them have very strong families, and they have open communications with their families, but they also find that with their peers. And I think that really distinguishes the series.
That's very true.
Were you surprised by their strength, or did you just you just knew they had that strength?
Yeah, that's a great question. Did we know they had that strength?
I don't know. I think I knew that they could find it. I think starting out I didn't know how she would find it, but I knew that she could and would. And I think I wanted to somehow let that come through to the readers, that you're faced with these things and you want to do something, but you're not sure if you can. And even if you think you can, you're not sure that you can be successful. And I think for each of them, there was a little moment where they had the idea, they felt strongly about it, but they wobbled a little bit on whether they could actually make this change in the way they wanted to, and for McKenna be heard in the way she felt she should be, and everyone has the right to be. So that, I think, I wasn't sure at the beginning how, but I knew that she would eventually.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and there's definitely growth in
Yeah.
characters experience growth.
Yeah,
And
it's not all easy for them, right?
really
They have
important.
to,
They don't
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't start out as heroes.
right.
She's not on it. She doesn't have a big podium,
Mhm.
but she starts out from a very personal place and her own observations. And I loved the fact that she wasn't perfect.
And all of these characters have their flaws, but what's wonderful about
Mhm.
these stories is that they all overcome them somehow, or maybe they don't. Maybe it's not all perfect at the end, but they definitely have made a difference. You definitely get the sense that they've made a difference, and they've made a difference by coming together, right? They were never in on this by themselves, and they recognize this. And I just want to say one thing, with Maritza being a soccer player, what's really important to her through soccer, she's learned, like, you play fair on the field, but it's also important that you play fair off the field in
Yeah.
life with your
Yeah.
friends, with your family, and with people, and you treat people as you want to be treated. And I think that's very
Mhm.
key. And not only that, but like where the whole story is based, the beautiful Washington, D.C., where history is made. And these girls are all like, history isn't done yet. We're here to keep making history and to keep making change in this powerful city. So
Absolutely.
the community center is
That's
a setting,
kind
but
of
also the city of DC is a big character of these stories as well, right? Like I
Yeah.
love
yeah.
doing research
Yeah.
in DC. I
I'm,
did
I'm
it
so
ago, and it was really fun. Yeah.
I have to thank you all. This is so wonderful to hear how you all came together, how you created these strong characters. It's really inspiring. And I'm very excited about being able to welcome Sharon and Denise this Sunday at 2 p.m. at Wachtung Booksellers. We will be in the cafe next door, so there should be plenty of room, and it'll be a safe space to come meet the authors, get some signed books. We're really sorry you won't be able to join us, Angela, but your books are there.
Yeah.
So
Yay.
in spirit and in actuality.
I'll be there in spirit.
And we'll give the kids an opportunity to ask questions and meet real life authors. I hope you bring your dolls.
Oh, yeah.
Good. And in the meantime, if anybody can't join us on Sunday but want some signed books, there's a button at the bottom of the screen here that will direct you to Wachtung Booksellers website, and you can get your copy of the book, and we will have them signed for you. But please come by on Sunday and meet Sharon and Denise. And thank you, Angela, Sharon, Denise, for sharing the stories behind these
Thank you.
amazing
Thank you.
girls.